Hey, this is Matt from InvestiQuant. Today is Wednesday, November 4th, 2020, and today is the day after the election. However, in these unprecedented times, we do not have a clear winner yet. So quite an overnight session that has led to lots of volatility, wide ranges, outside days forming or outside bars forming in the overnight session relative to yesterday's fairly wide range, 51 points of range in the S&P. We have an outside session forming here in the overnight session where we've got over twice the range, and volume is fairly similar to what it was in yesterday's session. So obviously a heavily traded session last night as the results started pouring in. This morning, I figured we would do what we did yesterday, where yesterday we looked at what had happened the past handful of election days, and it played out pretty similarly to what has happened over the past 4 years or so. Now, this morning, we are obviously dealing with something different here where we do not have a clear winner and may not have a clear winner for days, it sounds like. So regardless, we're still going to take a look at what has happened the day after the election here in recent years and add that to our toolbox for today to keep in mind of what has happened in the past. So this first chart that I'm showing you is 5-minute price action for the day after the most recent election. So this was 2016. On this day, we had a decent size gap down. It was a gap down of just shy of 17 points, and we rallied off the open. It looks like the low print of the day was right around the open and kind of trended higher throughout the session. So we gapped down, pushed higher pretty much throughout the session, closed right up on the highs here in this 2016 day after election session. Let's take a look at the next one. So the next one is 2012. And that's kind of just the opposite price action compared to what we had in 2016. So in this one, we also had a reasonable size gap down. This gap was just over 15 points, and the opening print was right near the high of the day in this scenario. So we opened, dropped fairly hard early on, bounced, and then closed back down near the lows of the session. So somewhat trend-like activity, although the low was made earlier on in the session and not later on in the session. But a directional day formed that day to the downside. The next one we're going to be looking at is 2008. 2008, we also had a similar sized gap down. So this was a gap down of around 14 points in the S&P. This one, we had a small push higher that failed and then continued to trend lower throughout the session, and we closed right near the lows. Looks like there's a little pop in the last 15 minutes or so, but again, this gave us a directional day in this instance to the downside. And then our last example we're going to be looking at is 2004. I'm going to go ahead and take a wild guess that this one looks nothing like what we have today, seeing that this session basically went nowhere and did so on a very small range. This only had about 10 points of range that day. We're likely to get that here in the first few minutes of trading after the open. But this one chopped sideways pretty much all day. A little drop into the close that was recovered, and it closed just looks like a point or not even a point below the open. So kind of a doji looking session this day on very light range. That was back in 2004. But the more recent examples had more volatility to them. So again, this is 2008. This one was kind of trendy to the downside. On 2012's post-election day, this one was kind of trendy on the downside. And then our most recent election day in 2016 was trendy to the upside. So we've had kind of trend-like action in 3 of the past 4 sessions. That being said, we obviously are still awaiting news that is changing the market on a headline by headline basis. So we're likely to have lots of volatility today, but hopefully this was helpful. Good luck, and we will see you next time.